Paul Chan delivers the 2023-24 budget. A new round of consumption vouchers with a total value of $5,000 to each permanent resident. And a reduction in stamp duty for first-time homebuyers. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Financial Secretary Paul Chan delivered the 2023-2024 budget in the Legislative Council today. He announced a series of measures to support local residents and businesses as the city recovers from the COVID pandemic. Despite a government deficit of about $140 billion, Chan proposed a number of tax concessions and welfare benefits, while the stamp duty for first-time homebuyers has immediately been lowered. There's also a new round of consumption vouchers at $5,000 for each eligible resident. Timothy Lee begins our coverage.
Unveiling the first budget under the current administration, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said he selected the orange color for the cover of the budget to symbolize new hope and opportunities in the city. Here are some highlights. The SAR government had a deficit of around $140 billion. There will be a reduction of salaries tax for 2022-23 by 100%, subject to a ceiling of $6,000. An extra half-month payment for recipients of the Old Age Living Allowance. The measure for cooling down property prices will remain. And there's an increase in tobacco duty by 60 cents per cigarette. Even with the Treasury currently strapped for cash, the government will continue with the consumer voucher scheme, which has been implemented over the last 2 years. This year's voucher scheme will distribute $5,000 compared with last year's $10,000. Eligible recipients include permanent residents of the city and new arrivals aged 18 or above. The first batch, consisting of $3,000, will be dispersed in April, while the remaining $2,000 will be dispersed during the middle of the year.
I think for people living in Hong Kong, it's great because obviously there's money being spent in the community and it's got to be spent in Hong Kong rather than being sent or spent elsewhere. For most people, $5,000, for a lot of people it's quite a lot of money, but for a lot more people, it's just a small chunk of money, and I think it could be put to better use. I'm just happy to get $5,000, to be honest.
I think it should give out more for its citizens, absolutely. I think it's important that they give back what they should. I think it should be cash, absolutely. Vouchers are one thing, but cash is king. And if they're going to give out the money anyway, why not give it out in cash anyway, so people can use it how they really want to?
With the voucher becoming available in April, many residents said they would like to spend their vouchers on items ranging from groceries to flight tickets. Authorities believe that up to 6.5 million residents will benefit from the scheme, at a cost of around $33 billion. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
In a move to help first-time homebuyers climb the housing ladder, the Financial Secretary has cut the property stamp duty for the first time in more than a decade. The move could save those who are buying a flat for the first time for their own use up to 30% of stamp duty. Sharon Tang tells us more.
With immediate effect, first-time homebuyers can pay a lower stamp duty thanks to the budget announcement. For example, an $8 million flat used to cost homebuyers $300,000 in stamp duty. As a result of today's adjustments, first-time homebuyers will be able to pay 20% less than before, saving them $60,000. The less expensive the flat, the bigger the rate of reduction. In the past, a $90,000 stamp duty was imposed on those buying a $4 million flat. From today onwards, that stamp duty is $60,000 or $30,000 less than before. The Financial Secretary said the move will help home buyers.
For people who are buying for their own use, this will be an alleviation of their pressure. Some may see a reduction of $30,000, some $40,000, so that they can maybe buy another piece of furniture. We have seen a number of corrections in the property market. These have stabilized the market. We think it is a right time to make these adjustments.
Authorities expect some 37,000 homebuyers will benefit from the change, and that would also cost the government $1.9 billion a year. Meanwhile, the city's property market cooling measures, generally regarded as harsh, remain unchanged. Stuart Leung, chairman of the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong, said adjusting stamp duty will benefit the city's property market, but the harsh measure on properties does not bring in any revenue or even talent. This year's land sale program will cover 12 residential sites. Together with railway-related property development, private development and urban renewal authorities' renewal projects, the potential land supply is expected to have the capacity of providing about 20,000 housing units. Authorities also promised to provide land where more than 72,000 private housing units will be built in the next 5 years. That's double the goal set for the previous 5-year period. The government added it has already identified sufficient land to build some 360,000 public housing units. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
A new Happy Hong Kong campaign was introduced in the budget, featuring a series of fun and food-related experiences for the public. There was also support for the art industry, enterprises, and scientific research. Jackie Lin reports.
Just weeks after the government unveiled the Hello Hong Kong global promotional drive aiming to woo visitors to the city, a new campaign called Happy Hong Kong is on the way.
The campaign will focus on activities related to gourmet experiences, fun, amusement, and exciting ambience. It will also help stimulate local consumption and boost our economy.
Hoping to bring joy and fun to Hong Kongers, the Happy Hong Kong initiative includes a gourmet marketplace to be launched in the coming months. Large-scale food fairs will be organized for people to enjoy local, mainland, and overseas delicacies. One of the centerpieces of the Happy Hong Kong campaign will be a mega land and sea carnival to be held in the summer. With Victoria Harbour as a backdrop, the Jamboree will feature dancing and music performances from around the world, plus a brand new lighting show. The West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, Ocean Park, and Disneyland will be holding carnivals and activities this year. The tourism board will be given additional funding of $200 million to help Hong Kong secure more opportunities to stage international meetings and exhibitions over the next 2 years. Talks are underway to hold the central bank governors' meeting in Hong Kong in the latter half of this year. Apart from the Wine and Dine Festival, Hong Kong Cyclothon, Hong Kong Sevens, and the Art Basel, there is also the debut of the Hong Kong Pop Culture Festival. Good news for the business sector too. Profits tax for the assessment year 2022-23 will be reduced by 100%, subject to a ceiling of $6,000. The budget also introduced a new capital investment entrance scheme to enrich the city's talent pool. Applicants for the scheme shall make investments of a certain amount in the local asset market, excluding properties. Upon approval, they may reside and pursue development in Hong Kong. To promote the exchange of culture and arts in the Greater Bay Area, the budget proposes to provide $135 million over 5 years to support performing arts groups and artists in Hong Kong in joining performances and productions up north. 1,000 Hong Kong artists are expected to benefit each year. Highlights in scientific research as well. $10 billion would be earmarked to promote the development of life and health technology in Hong Kong. The government plans to set aside $6 billion worth of subsidies for institutes to set up relevant thematic research centers. $3 billion will be dedicated to such research efforts in frontier technology fields such as AI and quantum technology. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
This year's budget continued to introduce a series of relief measures to alleviate economic pressure on residents. However, a slight cut can be seen in terms of the subsidized amount. Christy Khan reports.
Financial Secretary Paul Chan revealed there will again be a 100% salary tax rebate, but the cap has been reduced to $6,000 from $10,000 last year. Approximately 1.9 million taxpayers will benefit. Also, homeowners will receive a rate concession of up to $1,000 for the first 2 quarters of the coming financial year. The administration estimates that this will involve more than 3 million properties in the city. Meanwhile, the basic and additional child tax allowance will be increased from $120,000 to $130,000. The change is expected to benefit more than 320,000 taxpayers. In the upcoming financial year, the underprivileged groups who are receiving the comprehensive social security assistance will continue to receive an additional allowance, which is half of their original monthly standard amount. Xi Laishan, Deputy Director of the Society of Community Organizations, said the budget has disappointed a lot of people, citing the government's failure to address the grassroots needs. The finance chief, however, reiterated that reducing relief measures is due to the government's current financial situation.
We have seen 2 years of heavy fiscal deficits. While the external environment is still rife with challenges, we will continue to adhere to the principles of exercising fiscal prudence, keeping expenditure within the limits of revenue, committing resources as and when justified and needed, strictly containing the growth of government expenditure, and exploring various ways to increase revenue.
The relief measures announced by the Financial Secretary today have been scaled back compared to previous years. This as the SDR government is expected to see a deficit of around $140 billion for the current financial year. Chan also said the government will cover the fees for candidates sitting the Diploma of Secondary Education exams next year. Additionally, the public transport fare subsidy scheme will be extended for 6 months until October this year. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The Financial Secretary announced a cigarette tax increase of 60 cents per stick, taking effect immediately. Paul Chan said such a duty is meant to safeguard public health and increase the incentive for smokers to reduce or quit smoking. Mimo Singhai tells us more.
Many people find it difficult to quit smoking despite knowing of its harmful effects. Financial Secretary Paul Chan said increasing the duty on cigarettes is the most effective way of reducing smoking. Chan announced that the duty on each cigarette will raise by 60 cents, pushing the price of a standard packet of 20 cigarettes from about $62 to $74, a $12 increase. Chan also said duty on other tobacco products will be increased by the same proportion, adding authorities' aim is to reduce the smoking prevalence rate down from the existing 9.5% to 7.8%. Convenience stores acted swiftly by adding $12 to price tags. However, some places such as grocery stores reacted slower, allowing some residents to buy cigarettes in bulk at a cheaper price. This man decided to buy 10 packets. He said he is glad that the government did not raise the price of cigarettes to $100, a rumor he had heard before the budget announcement. He added he will smoke less instead of quitting. Sources said tobacco tax revenue the government received in the last financial year amounted to $8 billion. With this new duty, it would raise by $1 billion per year. A newspaper merchants group said the new duty will encourage smokers to turn to contraband cigarettes, leading to the loss of income for local newspaper vendors. Meanwhile, the financial chief said the Hong Kong Jockey Club will pay an annual special football betting duty of $2.4 billion per year over 5 years, starting from 2023 to 24. But the current betting duty rate stayed the same.
We specifically asked, as I mentioned in the budget, the Jockey Club should not reduce its commitment, in other words, the donations to the charitable organizations. They should keep it at that level or even, if possible, enhance it.
Regina Ip, convener of the Executive Council, supported the move, describing it as clever and welcoming, as the levy can bring a total of $12 billion into the Treasury. The Jockey Club said the new tax will have a major impact on the club's donations to its charities trust. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
Meantime, the government expects a deficit of nearly $140 billion this financial year. That's $90 billion more than the initial estimate. Authorities explained there was massive expenditure incurred in the 2022 Employment Support Scheme, as well as the anti-pandemic measures taken last year. Fiscal reserves will fall to about $820 billion this financial year. Still, the financial secretary said the economy is recovering as cross-border travel has fully resumed. And he expects there will be economic growth of between 3.5% to 5.5% this year. Still ahead, Putin suspends Russia's participation in the New START agreement, and Biden says support for Ukraine will not waver. In England, nurses put on hold their upcoming strike action as they meet for intensive talks with the government. And a woman dies after being hit by a falling metal bar on a Mongkok street. Welcome back. The United States says it will keep a close eye on Russia after President Vladimir Putin said Moscow would suspend participation in the New START agreement designed to keep caps on nuclear arms deployment. In his long-delayed State of the Nation speech, Putin on Tuesday slammed the U.S. and its allies for using Ukraine to wage a proxy war against Russia. U.S. President Joe Biden, meanwhile, continued to rally support for Ukraine as he addressed crowds in Poland. Nazvi Karim reports.
If there was any uncertainty that the world was gripped by a Soviet-era type Cold War, then Vladimir Putin put to rest any doubts during his State of the Nation address on Tuesday. The Russian president's decision to suspend Moscow's participation in the New START, or Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, has major implications. The 2010 agreement not only restricts the deployment of nuclear arms, it also allows both sides to physically check each other's nuclear arsenal. Though Russia's foreign ministry said Moscow will continue to abide by the restrictions, bilateral exchanges are under threat in a chilling reminder of Soviet-era relations. In his address to top lawmakers and the military, Putin also blamed the West for starting the Ukraine war and said Western allies want to control Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, on a visit to Greece, called Putin's move irresponsible.
The announcement by Russia that it's suspending participation in the START is deeply unfortunate and irresponsible. We'll be watching carefully to see what Russia actually does. We'll, of course, make sure that in any event we are postured appropriately for the security of our own country and that of our allies.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called on Putin to reverse his decision.
Over the last years, Russia has violated and walked away from key arms control agreements. With today's decision on New START, the whole arms control architecture has been dismantled. I strongly encourage Russia to reconsider its decision and to respect existing agreements.
U.S. President Joe Biden is in Poland rallying European support for Ukraine after an unannounced visit to Kiev, where he reassured Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of the United States' unwavering commitment. Speaking at Warsaw's Royal Castle hours after Putin's speech, Biden did not mention the New START treaty, instead sending a message to Russian citizens.
I speak once more to the people of Russia. The United States and the nations of Europe do not seek to control or destroy Russia. The West was not plotting to attack Russia, as Putin said today. And millions of Russian citizens who only want to live in peace with their neighbors are not the enemy. This war is never a necessity. It's a tragedy.
China's top diplomat Wang Yi met Russia's security chief Nikolai Patrushev in Moscow today, a day after Vladimir Putin's State of the Nation speech. Wang, director of the Office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission of the Chinese Communist Party, joined the Russian official in rejecting the Cold War mentality. Patrushev, Secretary of Russia's Security Council, was joined in the meeting by members of the China-Russia Strategic Security Consultation Mechanism. A Chinese Foreign Ministry statement said the two sides expressed their willingness to oppose all forms of unilateral bullying, while Patrushev accused the West of acting against Russia and China. Wang also due to meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov as part of his visit to Moscow, and a meeting with Putin has not been ruled out. Nurses in England have put on hold their upcoming strike action as they meet for intensive talks with the government today. It is the first sign of a breakthrough in this long-running dispute over pay rises and working conditions for nurses. The British government has also invited teaching unions to move into formal talks on pay, conditions, and reform. Tracy Furness has more.
The Royal College of Nursing, or RCN, and the government said they will hold their first intensive talks since the recent strikes by nurses began last December. Health Secretary Steve Barclay is set to meet RCN representatives today. The agreement to hold talks means that a 48-hour strike planned by the RCN for March 1st has been cancelled. The RCN has been pushing for a pay rise that is in line with inflation. The government has continually said that such pay rises would only fuel inflation, causing interest rates and mortgages to go up. Britain is experiencing its worst inflation in 4 decades. Despite today's talks, the National Health Service will be strained from a planned strike by tens of thousands of junior doctors next month. This, as Britain is experiencing its biggest wave of strike action in decades, involving hundreds of thousands of workers from a range of industries. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In other news, a woman was hit by a falling metal bar on a street in Mongkok this afternoon. She later died in hospital. Police cordoned off the area outside Chung Fat Mansion near Chung Wong Road after the incident. At around 2 p.m., a metal bar fell from above, penetrated a canvas canopy, and hit the 60-year-old woman on the street. She later died in hospital. The exterior of an upper floor unit of Chung Fat Mansion was under renovation. Police arrested one of the workers in the unit. And that's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.